Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. I'm the editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps, Dan Mohrmann, the editor-in-chief of Mile High Sports Magazine, Doug Ottewill, my cohort, always with me, wearing some Green Mountain gear. The Rams boys and girls are looking good as we get to the end of 5A basketball.
We got some business to attend to here pretty quick over at the Collie.
That's right. We're getting closer and closer to Collie season. Before Collie season comes around, though, we've got to talk some state wrestling, which we're going to do a little bit of today. We had the first two classifications of state swimming champions crowned over the weekend. State hockey brackets were released today. It's a little bit of a funny show today, Doug, because usually we try and go in regular season, a lot of stuff happening at the same time. Today's kind of a much more narrow focus. It's going to be interesting. We're going to see how it goes. We have a great guest. I know it's a guy that's going to share more insight with Kevin Schaefer later this week, and we're going to get to Tim here in just a little bit. But as we begin every show, we talk about what's on our upswing. And Doug, for me, I was looking at those three, the two classifications of state hockey tournament brackets that were released today, and those top three teams in Class 5A are going to make for a great tournament run. Poudre School District, the Stars, Valor Christian, and Cherry Creek, they combined to lose just 8 games in the course of the regular season. State tournament brackets are out. You can find them up on coloradopreps.com. I expect to see those three teams in just over a week in the semifinals just down the road from my house at Ed Robson Arena in Colorado Springs. But when you look and see the body of work that those three teams have put together, it makes me really, really excited for some playoff puck.
Okay, I know this is off script, but you do this to me all the time, so I'm going to repay the favor. So you mentioned those three, and you say those are teams you expect to be in the semifinal. Who's another dark horse that people should be looking for at state hockey?
Regis Jesuit is always one of those stalwarts, right? So it'd be really hard to overlook the Raiders. Mountain Vista has been playing some good hockey. And then, of course, Denver East, who we got to feature a couple years back in the issue of Mile High Sports Magazine, where hockey was king. Hockey was the sports person of the year. And a big reason for that was the Denver East hockey team, because I believe they went and won a national title after winning a state championship. So those are three other teams. I would say, I don't want to say it's three teams for one spot, but those are probably the 6 that I have my eye on as playoffs get rolling, and it's a 12-team bracket. So, half the field is going to be very, very competitive. But
impressive answer. I think I'm going to be able to get you, caught in a rock and a hard place going off script and not the case. So well done. I should know better. You're the editor of Colorado Preps.
If you're trying to catch me not paying attention to high school athletics, you're going to have to try a different day.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But Doug, what's on your upswing?
Yeah, my upswing, and shout out to 9 News Prep Rally, because I always get some great tidbits from the show. They do a great job collecting highlights and highlighting all the great kids and stories across the state, much like you do on a daily basis. But I was watching, and it dawned on me that there was a couple of schools that ended some long league championship droughts. And when you say that and you hear the names of these schools, and I've been, paying attention to high school basketball a long time in these parts, and, you hear these names and you're like, yeah, those teams just don't figure in that often, if ever. And so when I heard this, that the Brighton boys basketball team captured its first league crown since 1951, and the Kennedy, the Commanders, the girls team also won their league. It was the first time since 1979. Those are some streaks snapped worth noting. So, the congratulations to the Bulldogs and the Commanders. That's pretty cool to see teams that are not traditionally in the mix, that are not traditionally thought of basketball powerhouses, getting it done in conference this year. So pretty cool stories on both sides.
When you sent me those years through a tag, a lot of life for a lot of people has happened since 1951 and since 1979.
Yeah, so, most of mine, if not more than mine.
So, we'd be remiss to not congratulate both those programs. Hopefully it means, they can continue that momentum into the playoffs. Dougie, it's cold season, it's flu season. I'm battling a little. I'm not injured, but I'm definitely a little hurt, coming off a little bit of a bug over the weekend. And when you think about ways that you need to get by this kind of stuff and get moving. I think about the recovery center over at Upswing, designed for young athletes, right? It's where young athletes will go. They need to listen to their bodies, prepare for the next challenge. My next challenge is simply getting through the next 3 days unscathed so that we can get to state wrestling A-okay. But I could definitely use some of those facilities that we see over at Upswing. When you're there, you're going to notice that there are some premier athletes getting some premier training done. Upswing gives young athletes the chance to train like champions while building discipline, confidence, and resilience. And even though it always sounds expensive, Upswing, the Upswing Foundation does a great job of removing cost barriers, providing Upswing scholarships that can launch an athlete toward their next big win. You can learn more at upswingfoundation.org and check them out at 7460 South University Boulevard in Centennial. We would normally bring in our guy Jermaine Stafford. Jermaine is still he's become a busy man this winter, trying to prepare some of those kids for what he hopes would become an indoor track season. But he's also the new head coach for Lutheran Track and Field, so I know that he's got a season to prepare for. As crazy as it sounds, spring sports practice begins in 1 week. So to trump, as we get concerned about the snowfall here in Colorado or the lack thereof, I say don't worry about it. Spring sports begin in a week, and that's when we're going to start getting the bulk of our snow.
Yeah, absolutely. I just vividly remember, and I'm sure you do, especially because you played baseball, that, you know, as much as you want to be excited about your sports season, getting to spring sports season in Colorado is definitely a double-edged sword. I mean, it's the time of year when you have no idea what any of the days are going to be like. They could be freezing, they could be hot, they could be pleasant, they could be windy. You're going to get those stingers on your hands from hitting the baseballs or fielding ground balls. Track season feels like there's no way your muscles will ever warm up. But hey, you know what? By May, all those kids are pretty tough, regardless of how they got there.
That's right. But before we get to all that, we have maybe one of the best overall high school state tournaments happening this week. Regional championships have been claimed. Wrestlers are going to start converging at Ball Arena this week, and we get to the state wrestling tournament. For as little wrestling as I see through the course of the regular season, this is one of my favorite events of the year. And you have to bring in the guy to talk state wrestling if you're going to talk about it, and that guy is Tim Yount of On the Mat Rankings. We publish his rankings on coloradopreps.com. Tim, thanks for joining us. We talked about it a little bit before the show, but it was hilarious because we bumped into you at the 3A Boys State Golf Tournament up in Eagle, of all places. And the first thing you told us when Doug and I were trying to get some food before we went out on the course, and the first thing you told us is, man, I love what you guys are doing with the show. So to have you on is just been a great full circle moment coming into this. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. No, it was. And during football season, you guys educated me. I like to think that I understand football well at the high school level. And I get to sit down for an hour and 15 minutes listening to you guys. And so I get to go tell my friends some stuff I learned from you. So actually, it was a perfect world watching you guys during football, get to see a little bit during golf. And now we get to talk some wrestling.
I don't know about that, Tim. That might be like asking, a couple of algebra majors to try to teach you calculus in an hour. That might be our qualification right there. But I appreciate the kind words. But we are excited to have you on because of all the people in the state that know high school wrestling in Colorado inside and out. You are 100% the guy. So we can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, and let's kind of start there, Tim. I mean, maybe not a lot of people know your background. They'll see that you can find the version of the rankings that you allow fortunate members of the media to publish in certain spots. But how did you come to be where you are just in this world of Colorado high school wrestling?
It's interesting having grown up kind of around this sport. Well, a lot of sports. I grew up in a small town in Northwest Kansas, but I learned to love data and information and all these various things. And so when I moved to Colorado back in 1989, my brother had already been living here. We were like, okay, let's go to a wrestling tournament this weekend. Where are they? I don't know. I'm not sure. Where can we find the next wrestling tournament? And so we hunted and pecked and found some options, but we thought, wow, what a great resource it would be for us to be able to come together and create a slight modest publication, do some rankings and do some interviews and meet with coaches and athletes and all those things. So for 5 years we did that, and that's kind of got me started on this whole ranking gig that we've been doing now for 32 years, which is crazy.
32 years, that's incredible. And you're always the guy. It's always funny because when the matches get going at Ball Arena, you can probably count on me kind of making my way over to you, 3-4 times a day, be like, okay, Tim, help me with this, help me with that. So Tim,
I know it's funny to me because Dan and I spend a lot of time trying to assemble guys and actually voting for our own rankings on football. I don't know how you've managed to run a rankings service for that long without wanting to, punch somebody in the face, because as a ranker, I know that there is never a scenario in which you're always right. There's always somebody who doesn't like your rankings. And so I think it's kind of interesting that you've chosen that path and done it for so long, and people still like you.
It's funny what you just said, and I'll never forget this. One of the dads of an athlete was telling me every weekend, my son's going to win state. My son's going to win state. My son's going. I had him pick like second, through the entire season. Of course, you know what happens, right? He wins state. So first thing he does, he comes back to me and he says, I told you he was going to win state. Well, the good thing is next year, he was a junior that year. I picked him to win state the entire year, and he won a second title. Now he's the head coach at a 3A program, and I get to kind of rib him a little bit to say, I was wrong. You proved me right. You proved me right the next year, but you didn't prove me right the junior year. So take care of me with your kids right now if you can.
Say, hey, is there about heart? You're always the 7th best wrestler in the state.
We're going to get into the tournament itself, but just kind of on that point, how much of a balance is there between the data that you love and a little bit of subjectivity? And this is an example, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to beat him up, and I know he's going to accuse me of trying to beat him up when I see him on Thursday, but Tom Blair, who does the girls' side of the rankings that you also distribute, I look at Timberly Martinez, who's the only person going for 4 state titles this week. It's going to be the first time that the focus will be only on a girl, but she's been ranked second the entire time. And I look at it and I'm like, she's a 3-time state champion. How do you have her anywhere other than first when she's so experienced and so successful? So how much of a blend of subjectivity and data is there when you do this?
It's a really, really good question. And I always tell people that when you do rankings, I could set up the algorithm to just spit out information for me, right? And tell me who should be first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on and so forth. And tell me the team scores. It can tell me the team scores. But the eye test is what ultimately allows me to know whether a kid is really better or just by data better based on numbers. And so I don't lean on data to completely drive the rankings that we do. There's a balance where I know the kid is good, but I want to be able to see them. Sometimes you see a kid wrestle and they're sick, or they're partially injured, or they've had a bad day or a bad week, or they're fighting with their girlfriend or something like that. And sometimes data spits out stuff based on stuff that doesn't take that into consideration. You make some bad picks. And so the eye test for me is to get to tournaments every weekend, have a chance to get to state, have a chance to talk to coaches, have a chance to talk to parents. And I spend a lot of my time actually doing that, just learning more than just what I see on a mat on a particular duel or tournament. And then weigh that in versus who they wrestling. They wrestling good opponents. They wrestling, bad schedule and all that things. And that adds to the culmination decision-making that has to go into a ranking system. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, Tim, I know we're going to get into boys. I mean, that's obviously your area of specialty, but Dan brings up a good point. First time that a girl is the only individual, girls or boys, going for a 4-state title. And obviously you focus on the boys, but you're a big fan of the sport. What have you noticed about the ascent of girls wrestling, sanctioned in 2021? Where has it come relatively quickly here in the last 4 years?
It's pretty amazing. I have a chance. My real work is with USA Triathlon. I do this wrestling stuff on the side, but I've had a chance to work with Wrestle Like a Girl, which was the main driver of getting the sport of women's wrestling from an emerging sport to a championship sport at the NCAA level. And as part of the info share that we did, we would present at NCAA clinics and conferences together and stuff like that. And I would learn so much about the sport, not just in Colorado, but around the country and how fast it was growing. And then I would turn back around and say, what's it doing in Colorado? It's like exponential. I mean, it's amazing. I'm talking to coaches now saying, yeah, last year we had 10 females on my roster. This year I'm looking at 25, and I've got half of them never even heard the word wrestling come out of their mouths. Now they want to do this sport. It is the reason why I think the sport is really booming in the state of Colorado, because the women have added something new and different for us to enjoy as fans and as spectators and as people that support the sport.
With no boys going for a fourth title, are there any other storylines? And take this from the perspective of someone who's coming in to watch at Ball Arena for maybe the first time. Like, what are some intriguing storylines that they should keep their eye on? And my first inkling, and I went in to research this and realized we were going to have you on the show, so I don't need to because I can just ask you point blank. But, any juniors going for 3 that we should keep an eye on? Anything like that?
Yeah, and let me. I want to back up really quick, and I want to just touch on that Matilda Ruby and Timberly Martinez setup. Matilda Ruby also is a pretty renowned wrestler in the state, having won 2 titles, going for her 3rd as a junior. This has the making of being the top wrestling match, boys and girls included, the entire 3 days that we're in Ball Arena. And I'm telling you right now, I may just stop wrestling with the guys' side and not even watch what's happening there to watch this match. It's going to be really exciting and fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. On the guys' side, which is what you noted is where I spend most of my time, we don't have a person going for their 4th state title, but we've got Drake Von Bauer, who I think is one of the most electric, fun to watch kids from Severance, who's going for his 3rd title as a junior. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see how he does. At the same time, we've got some guys that are going for their 3rd title. We've got an Austin Collins, who's known as one of the pound for pound is known as the top wrestler in Colorado. And that's how he grades out. That's how good he is. He'll be going for his 3rd. He was 2nd 1 year, so he wasn't able to get a four-time streak going. Derek Barrows from Pomona, part of that Pomona team that is just unbelievably good. He'll be going for his 3rd title. He was 3rd the 1 year. He didn't get there. We've got some others that are going to be going for their 2nd state title. There's the Tristan Pino of Sand Creek will be going for his 2nd. And then we got Lincoln Valdez of Pomona, who I think arguably too is one of the top 10 in the nation. He'll be going for his 2nd title as well. And the sad thing I want to mention, you guys, as part of this, we would be looking at a junior going for his 3rd, but he had some casualties with his education and wasn't able to get on the map this year. And that was Devin Lopez out of Pueblo East. So sadly, we're not going to be able to see him go for his 3rd as a junior.
Tim, you mentioned Pomona, and I think Dan and I talked, I want to say it was last week's show, I think half or just over half of the wrestlers in your rankings are ranked number 1. Pomona's wrestlers are ranked number 1 for their weight class. So it looks like they will roll or should roll to an 8th consecutive 5A team title. So first question would be, is there anybody that can stop them? Is there anything that could happen that would change that course of championship runs? And then secondly, from 5A down to 2 or 4A down to 2A, a little bit less certain. Are there any teams that you really like or you really feel could make a run and or make a unique story at the lower classifications?
Yeah, let me start with Pomona. I don't think it's a question they're going to win their 8th title in a row. I think it's a question of will they get the scoring record, which is 278.5. And when I run the numbers, you guys, it's crazy. I run the numbers based on a system that is proven over the last 5 years to be pretty accurate for where kids are going to place, scoring when they place in that particular position on the podium. They're at 280. So when you think about how close they're going to be to that state scoring record, If they meet the ranking that we put out for them, they should be able to get it, but it's going to be really close. It's going to be nip and tuck. So the first question is not so much will they win the title, because right now they're picked to win it by 115 points. It's going to be that record. The other question that you asked, which I think is a really good one, when you look at Pueblo East, they're the 4A leader. I think they're going to be the team to beat. They're up by 35 points over a very good, improved Air Academy team. And they're just a few more points ahead of them is going to be Roosevelt, which is going to be fighting Air Academy for that number 2 spot. So I think in the 4A class, it's not so much who's going to win it, because I think Pueblo East has got command of that. I think it's going to be who's going to get that second trophy as part of that. When you look at the 3A route, you're going to be looking at 2 teams that have been separate. Listen to this, you guys. 2 teams, Alamosa and Eaton, that have been separated by no more than 5.5 points since January 1st. So you think about when you score 125 points, you're separated by 5.5, and it hasn't been that much of a separation all year. It's going to be bonus points who's going to win that state title in 3A. I think those are the 2 teams that are going to be chasing the title, Alamosa, Eaton, but I think there's some other teams behind them that could still make at least an argument, if all their kids were to win state titles or be in the state finals, that they could push those 2 schools. On the 2A route, wow, it's going to be crazy good. We saw Cedar Ridge win their first state title last year in 2A. They're going to be the favorite to win right now. Although Highland this last week got 2 more points than Cedar Ridge, so they're the leader going into the state tournament without me running the state tournament points yet. So Cedar Ridge, Highland are the teams to beat, but don't miss on Meeker, don't miss on Rocky Ford, don't miss on North Fork, which I think are going to be really, really nipping at their tails and win a few matches here and there. And who knows, it could be another close title like we saw in 2A last year.
From the individual side, are there any wrestlers that jump out in your mind where maybe they found the podium, fifth, sixth place somewhere in there last year, but they have just taken such dramatic strides and gotten themselves into a state championship position that that really has you excited going into the start of things on Thursday?
Yeah, I think there's always those guys that seem to do some funny things, interesting things. And I'm going to mention one out of Kansas City. His name is Elias Coons. He's been podium 2 years. He's been just so close to winning a state title, but hasn't been able to do it. He's been in that shadow of really good kids that he's had to go against. He was at 175 this year. One of the best athletes, best wrestlers in the state of Colorado is Kendall out of Windsor. I don't think he could beat Kendall. So guess what their coaches did a few weeks ago? They bumped him from 175 up to 190. He then beat the number 1 ranked kid the following weekend, 15-5, just schooled him on his feet. And he is the favorite to win the state title at 190 in 4A for Kansas City. So that's a story where a guy's placed but hasn't been a state finalist, but he's going to have a really good shot to win it. The same thing happened with another individual, Achilles Evans out of Sand Creek. He was at 190, didn't think he was going to be able to win a title at 190, so he moved up to 215. He's going to have a shot to win it at 215 by giving up 15, 20 pounds. And so those are some storylines that are really good to talk about, but will they prove to work or not? We're going to find out in about inside of a week.
That's interesting. You feel like they'd almost want to go down to see if they can utilize, their strength a little bit more at a lower weight class. But that's really interesting to hear that they're going up, and all of a sudden they're thrust into that number 1 spot.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends in high school that wrestled, and they were always walking to lunch spitting all the time and wearing plastic bags and trying anything they could to cut weight. I would have liked those friends who said, "Yeah, let's go to McDonald's for lunch." But maybe I just had weird friends. I don't know. This is one of those tournaments, and I've written it a million times in the magazine and had a million people, confirm. But, for people that maybe haven't been, what is it about state wrestling? I mean, it's still the only state championship that's held at Ball Arena. Basketball is no longer, but wrestling still is. It's widely considered the best state tournament. Obviously, you're biased, but tell us why. Tell someone who's never been why they should get down there this weekend.
It's amazing when you put 15,000 people in an arena, not watching the Nuggets play basketball, but listen to wrestling. There are pockets of schools that are yelling and screaming during all these various matches. There's always a team screaming for someone. The energy, the excitement of being part of that, you'll never get that in a high school duel from the perspective that every match is bringing something amazingly crazy. I think the other thing that you get to do is you get to watch some of the best athletes in the sport of wrestling in the country, because we're a really good state. Pomona ranked 39th in the country, and we've got kids that are ranked in the top 15 in the country. You're going to have a chance to come and watch some guys. You may not know who they are by name, but you get to watch and learn about what mat it is that they're on and who's competing. You get to watch the females. Some of the top females in the country compete. I think it's fun to watch the matches, but I think it's more exciting to kind of sit back. And when there's a roar, and I'll go back, guys, I'll go back to when Tom Klum was going against Brett Roller for a state title. And Roller threw Klum to his back. Klum, the prohibitive favorite to win another state title, got thrown to his back, lost the match. The crowd was so deafening that for about 25, 30 seconds, people were screaming. You could just see the mouths of people, clasping their faces, say, I can't believe what we just saw. We're going to see stuff happen at state in those finals and state during the tournament that you would never expect. But we get to watch it and we get to learn it. We get to do these expressions and we get to hear the crowds and do all that. So that's what you need to go and watch for.
And that was going to lead me into my next question, but I'm going to tell you mine first. It's the question is going to be, what's your favorite part of the whole weekend? And mine is exactly what you said. When you get to finals, and really it's at the 2A mat specifically, because at the 2A mat, those entire towns are pretty much in Ball Arena cheering for those kids, your Rocky Fords. And I actually feel like that's always the loudest corner of the arena, and the one that I naturally gravitate towards a little bit more, just to see how those matches are playing out. But what's your favorite part of the weekend during the state wrestling tournament?
Yeah, and I'll go back to what you said, and not endorsing that people should be criminal-like, but if you were wanting to go to Ray, Colorado and knock some houses out and steal some jewelry and do something, go to Ray during state wrestling. People, no, don't really go to Ray, please. It's an amazing town, and I love Ray. But you are so right. The amazing part, it's interesting. We talk about the journey to get to a state final. And what I love the most about the state tournament is watching the finals. I think that's a lot of fun. There's a lot of craziness, a lot of cool things we get to see. But what I love the most is going back and looking at how did that athlete make the state finals? What did they have to do? What match did they have to overcome? They maybe had to win an overtime match, or maybe they had to come from behind. They were 8 points behind going to the third period. And when we get to watch the finals, we get to kind of relish the fact that that kid never gave up, never thought possible to lose a match. And here they are in the state finals. And so along with the great noise in the arena and the energy we have there, we get to reflect on the pathway that these kids took. And that's what I get to do is I look through the brackets, right? The state final, okay, how'd they get to the finals? And I get to kind of tell people around me, there are always people sitting around me, how'd they get to the finals? I get to tell the story. That's the cool part for me.
Well, Tim, I think you painted the picture extremely well of why the entire arena, the entire field is worth watching and worth sort of just experiencing. But since we're, doing sports talk, I'll try to back you into a corner here and ask you, if you had to sit in one spot and focus all your attention on one classification, and maybe you alluded to this already in one of your answers previously, but you got to pick one class, and that's the one you're watching. That's the one you're dialed in. That's the one that you think is the most intriguing. Which class is it and why?
There's no doubt it's 5A. And here's why. When I travel every weekend, I go to different tournaments and stuff. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to a 5A tournament that has some 4A athletes in it and some 3A athletes in it. But 5A is where the difference between first and 15th is really, really tight. And so when you get to watch a division that the match could go one way or the other, 1 point, it could be OT, and there's always those upsets in 5A. 5A is the class I enjoy the most, probably because I'm most familiar with them. I know the coaches very, very well, very personally. A lot of times I know their ADs because I've gotten to know the ADs through things that we've done as well. Although I will say this, that the 5A is probably the one that I'll watch the most, but I'll say that the intrigue of the other finals will always keep me looking to see what is the score in the period and who's ahead and who's behind and those things, just to see if something crazy is going to happen. Because knowing that we're going to have a 1-0 match at least one time with the chance to score a takedown to win the match late in the match is something I'm going to kind of maybe move from 5A. I'm going to look at that 4A match or 3A match or 2A match just to see how the ultimate finish is going to arise.
Well, and for our watchers, listeners, wherever they're finding us, before we let you go, plug your show with Kevin, because in my mind, that's maybe one of the best ways to keep up with state wrestling as it's happening. A great preview, great reviews. Talk about what you and Kevin have on the docket with your podcast.
One of the things that we get to do, and I spent about an hour today kind of walking through it, is we're going to walk through some of the top matches that we are looking forward to seeing. We're going to talk about who the team races are going to be between. We're going to talk about some of the great freshmen that have been on the mat this year that are ranked number 1 in the state of Colorado as freshmen in low weight and high weights. And then we're going to talk about anything that we think is going to be maybe about some of the top kids going for that 3rd title and that 4th title or the 2nd title, or their 1st title. We think would be pretty good going through the rest of their high school career. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff coming up this week.
And for anyone who wants to get a sense of the best way to go about that, when I drive up from Colorado Springs to Denver on Thursday, heading to Ball Arena, that's going to be what I'm listening to, Tim, just so I'm up to date on everything that I need to know, because Kevin does a great job of getting that information out of people, and you're great when it comes to chat and wrestling. So we're looking forward to you getting on Colorado Preps Weekly. Another great listen here on our network with Kevin Schaefer.
You guys, it's going to be a great weekend.
I certainly hope so. I will see you on Thursday, Tim. Have fun, enjoy the build-up, and we're going to get rolling Thursday at noon is when the first matches get rolling.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for letting me talk wrestling.
Hey, always. Great stuff, Tim. This has been a great show, and we couldn't have done it without you. I promise you that.
Okay.
Next time we run into each other on a golf course, let's try and swing the clubs a little and not just talk about our YouTube stuff. How's that?
That'd be great, guys. Maybe we'll see an Eagle again. Who knows, right?
Who knows?
All right.
Who knows?
All right, guys.
Take care, Tim.
See you guys.
Tim Yount of On the Mat rankings, vital part to what we do with a lot of our wrestling coverage at Colorado Preps. So great to have him on. Can't wait to chat it up with Tim a little bit more at Ball Arena on Thursday, but still plenty of stuff for us to get into, Doug. A little bit of history was made over the weekend. I think I sent you a message or two about it. Brihanna Crittendon from Riverdale Ridge. We've talked about her before. We're going to talk about her again. Cemented her place in Colorado high school girls basketball history over the weekend, and we'll talk about that right after this.
Yo, I can guard pro in these.
I can guard you and route you up.
You sure about that?
You fellas looking for a quarterback?
The goal!
You're right, Billy. These do bring out my eyes.
Every shoe for every athlete.
Dix is the GOAT.
The Benefits Broker team of agents has over 100 years in employee benefits and individual health care needs and is your 24/7 resource for a variety of essential benefits-related information. Clients have enjoyed the ability to connect in person or by phone, while others enjoy the convenience of their online service where they can review the status of their claims, obtain summaries, and download forms including claim forms. Dave and Steve do their homework so you don't have to. They know the market by distinguishing the best products from the merely adequate. Give them a call at 877-545-4840 or visit them online at benefitsbroker.com.
A little more slack.
Whoever said work smarter, not harder, didn't realize you could do both.
Welcome back into the Colorado Prep Show presented by UPSWING. Dan Mohrmann, Doug Ottewill doing doing the thing we do every week. We just get to talk about high school kids doing great stuff. And
man, I am wildly impressed with Tim. I mean, that, you and I talk a lot of football, a lot of basketball, and I feel like, it's work to keep up with an entire state's worth of great teams, great players. When you think about the sport of wrestling, not only do you have every school and every class, but you've got, all these weight classes. What is it? I think, is there 13? Am I correct? 14 weight. I mean, you've got to keep up with every weight class at every classification, every level. And Tim knows it. I mean, his level of information is exponential compared to trying to keep track of one football team. He's just a really impressive guy, and I can't encourage our viewers to go check out what he and Kevin are doing with the state wrestling tournament enough. I mean, those guys really, really are dialed in.
Well, and I have no problem plugging him in this way. His rankings, they are the best information you can get throughout the course of wrestling season, and you can subscribe to them and help him out and contribute to his cause. And all you have to do is email him at tim at onthematrankings.com, I believe is what it is. There is a link when I publish the rankings every week on coloradopreps.com where you can email Tim, sign up. It does cost a little bit of money, but I think if you are a wrestling fan and you want to know what's going on, that's the best information to get. So I'm excited to hang with Tim a little bit this week. What's funny is even though he talks a lot of wrestling, I see Tim more frequently at football games than I do anywhere else. Like
it's clear he loves high school sports. And
he loves
that's the kind of guy we like,
Exactly. Like we ran into him in Eagle of all places, and he told us he
in high school golf.
High school golf.
Yeah.
So the 6A and 5A basketball regular seasons come to an end this week, but a little bit of history was made over the weekend as Riverdale Ridge's Brihanna Crittendon became the girls basketball all-time leading scorer, passing up Tracy Hill, who had held the scoring record for 43 years at 2,934 points. That shot right there of Brihanna, that was the bucket. It was a fast break, pretty much uncontested layup. Shout out Nick Workman, new photography contributor over at coloradopreps.com for getting that shot. And Brihanna is now atop the girls basketball leaderboard, but also, Doug, no one who has played high school basketball in the state of Colorado, boy, girl, anything, has scored more points than Brihanna. She is kind of the standard when it comes to basketball scoring in Colorado. So in the agenda, I basically just decided we were gonna freelance this a little bit. But when you think of this accomplishment and you've been around high school basketball for so long, what comes to your mind when you take in the totality of what Brihanna has done?
Well, I think for anybody that's played basketball, girls or guys, you think about the sheer math of that accomplishment. And not only is it something that she accomplished, in totality, but the challenge of a basketball player to average that many points to hit that kind of number. I mean, it's not easy to go out and score 15 points a game at the high school level, much less 20 or 25. And she's doing that her entire career. And I think that's just, there's the difference between a player that has the ability to put up 30 points here and there and one that puts it up all the time. And I think for anyone that's ever played basketball, really at any level, you know how hard it is to hit those kind of levels, 25 points, 30 points, 35 points. You've got to be an incredible scorer to do that. So I think just from a sheer basketball standpoint, I look at that and think that's unbelievable. The number itself, and I know she's going to hit 3,000 points. So it's an entirely different stratosphere. It's just, it's amazing when you start to think about how challenging that is. I mean, I don't know if I scored 3,000 points in my high school basketball career if you include practice. It's just and JV level. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you really scratch your head and say, man, how did someone do that? But that's how good she is.
Well, and I think back because I saw her when she was a freshman. Her Riverdale Ridge teams got to the Coliseum. I want to say they were a 4A team that year for her first two. They ended up winning the 4A state title when she was a sophomore. But when I think back to when you first see her play, like you knew she was different. You knew she was a level above everyone else that was playing this game. And at the time, it was tough to judge because she was certainly the best 4A player in the state. And when you start figuring out what she's going to do against your Sienna Betz's, and Grandview won that game last year, but that was a fun battle to watch between Brihanna and Sienna. And I don't know if we do this enough, but when we've kind of identified those players that are going to be a notch above or kind of talked about as legends in this state 5 years down the road, I don't know if I don't know if we appreciate them enough when they're here at the time. I mean, Lauren Betts being the number one recruit in the country a few years back, like that was certainly a big deal. And I think the expectation was, do you win a state title? You have to win a state title with the number one recruit in the country. And Brihanna is I don't think she's the number one recruit in the country. She is a top ranked recruit in the country. That path for Riverdale Ridge is going to be tough when you factor in what Cherokee Trail and Arapahoe and, even the likes of Valor and Denver East are all going to bring to the table come state tournament time. But this is a one-of-one basketball player that we're seeing here. And you and I are working on stuff in the next issue of Mile High Sports Magazine that's going to include Brihanna. We should have a feature up in the coming days on ColoradoPreps.com about Brihanna becoming the all-time leading scorer in the state. But I'm trying to appreciate this level of basketball and the fact that we get to see it firsthand and not dwell and not have to come back 5 years down the road and say, man, remember how good that was? And I think that's something that Brihanna is probably leading that charge in is making me conscious of appreciating the greatness when we see it.
Well, and I think when we talked a little bit about it last week on the show, when you start to factor in history and rarity and things like that, words like that describe these players, it is you really do need to take pause and think how good you got it in the moment. And in my lifetime, I can think about Abby Weiner, Ann Struther, maybe even Nikki Weddle of Montbello, players that were remarkably good that people had on their radar. And then you go back a little ways, which makes this accomplishment even crazier, is that Tracy Hill, easily one of the best players that this state has ever seen any level. She played at a smaller school, so she probably didn't get the headlines when she was in high school, but she set a scoring record that held for 43 years. I mean, think about that. That's basically 3 generations at a minimum of athletes that, have come and gone without doing what she was able to do. That's incredible. And the fact that she was there, which I think hasn't been talked about enough, man, what a classy gesture. What a cool thing to be able to sort of pass the torch in person. And, the fact that she's happy about it and the fact that she was there to really celebrate that moment, as opposed to, the 72 Dolphins kind of holding on to their own record. I thought Tracy Hill, not only was it a great reminder of how absolutely phenomenal of a basketball player she was, but also just a great reminder about the spirit of sports and how happy she was for this young girl that was breaking something that was hers for 43 years. That was really cool to see. So, yeah, we talked about, I just rattled off, 4 other players besides Brihanna, and, that just doing the math, considering my own age, that you get one of these maybe once a decade, maybe. And I think so, to your point, when you get a chance to watch them, you should, and you should appreciate, and you should realize, and you should want to say, I was there when, and Brihanna, playing at the Coliseum will give other people a chance to do that and has given us a chance to do that. You can say someday, yeah, I saw her play when she was a freshman, a sophomore, when she broke the record, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and it's funny going back because it's two different answers for me. If you talk about it in terms of, growing up or just kind of casually observing Colorado high school sports, let's call it the best boys basketball player that I ever watched live was Brian Wood. And since I've gotten into this professionally, I don't know if that's the case because I remember a night, it was probably my first state tournament that I worked when the grade 8 was at the Coliseum, and Dom Collier had maybe like the game of games against Highlands Ranch. And I just remember you trying to tell me, look, he's good, but he's not like that upper echelon guy that everyone really, really wants him to be. And he turned out to have a really, really good college career at CU. But I mean, man, that performance against Highlands Ranch, I think he was beating Highlands Ranch at halftime of that game. And that's just something like I think I'm able to appreciate that. Like that might have been the best high school game that Dom ever had. Colby Ross is another one. Like Colby was one that while watching him, even though he didn't make his way to the NBA, but when you look at the records that he set when he played at Pepperdine, like that kid was always special. You could always tell that kid was special. And that was one where I really appreciated being able to watch him at any given moment. And I think that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone who's going to watch playoff basketball over the next few weeks is when you see a player like Brihanna Crittendon, and winning that 6A state championship is going to be a tough task for Riverdale Ridge. And I'm not saying they can't do it.
Teams in the field, it's that good at the top in Colorado.
Right. And I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying to get there, it's going to be a really, really tough task. So if there's anyone that goes into the Coliseum and they're just watching that Riverdale Ridge team, just appreciate what you're seeing in terms of maybe one of the most talented players and a girl, one of the most talented players that the state's ever seen, and a girl that, who knows, maybe she will hold this scoring record for another 43 years. Like this is a number that if it took 43 years for this number to get broken, considering some of the high level players that have come through, there's no telling how long it'll take to see the second girl in state history hit 3,000. So
hey, if I'm kicking when I'm 95, I will be there to watch that record get broken again.
I mean, you got to get that heart moving a little bit, buddy. Friday mornings you can start rolling up the mountain. So, we're going to touch on the rest of basketball, wrapping up. A couple of other odds and ends on the other side. It's a little bit of a shorter show today. Like I said, we're playing a little hurt, but I don't think people just want to listen to us ramble forever. But we're going to get into our last little bit and wrap up the show. Colorado Prep Show presented by Upswing. We'll be back right after this.
This is Tim Anderson of Gordon Insurance, and we are proud to support all of our area athletes. With offices in Lyman, Callahan, Flagler, Sterling, and Kit Carson, we offer all types of insurance, including home, auto, commercial, farm, crop, life, bonds, and workman's compensation. We are independent and thus can offer you multiple choices of companies, not just one. Call or visit the office near you, and one of our agents can take care of you. See all of our contact information by going to www.gordonins.com or call me at 719-740-1361.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients, these are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten to trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. And I am their only hope. I need to be their champion, to quote Prince Oberyn from Game of Thrones. They need someone in this trial by combat that can fight for them. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
There are those who say the modern world has made us lose touch with places like this. We say, that depends on what you're driving.
Final segment of the Colorado Prep Show presented by UPSWING. I'm Dan Mohrmann. That's Doug Ottewill. Dougie, a week from now, we will know what the first round of basketball playoff matchups, at least in 6A and 5A, will be, as those regular seasons are set to come to an end on Saturday. State brackets will be released on Sunday, and we'll have all those posted at coloradopreps.com. As I was looking through the selection seeding index earlier today, I think the most intriguing races at this point going into the playoffs are really those battles, that battle that's hovering around the 8 seed in every bracket, because you get an 8 seed, you're playing at home every round until you get to the Denver Coliseum, which I think is going to be such a crucial advantage. You look at 6A boys, number 7 right now is Fruita Monument, number 8 is Horizon, number 9 is Cherry Creek, and then at number 10, a team that you and I have been keeping an eye on all year, is George Washington. You go over to 5A, number 7 is Lewis Palmer, who's playing very, very good basketball right now. Bill Benton's got his team rolling. Number 8 is Rampart. And number 9, that sweatshirt that you're donning, those Green Mountain Rams, they were in the state title game last year. So same story kind of on the girls' side. Those top 8 seeds are really intriguing. Karen Jaraki has her Highland Ranch Falcons at number 7. This is in 6A for girls. Columbine, a team that we don't normally think about when it comes to girls basketball dominance, but that's a school that you're paying more attention to than I think most of us. They're sitting at number 8, and then Legend, a team that played really well at the Coliseum last year, sitting at number 9. And then to wrap that all up, 5A girls, Meade at number 7. Mike Ward looking to get his girls back to the Final Four. Palmer Ridge, another PPAC team that's been playing really well, at number 8. Pueblo East at 18-1 is number 9. An 18-1 team may not get that home court advantage that you so badly want. I've got a couple of soapbox thoughts as we get into.
Well, you know what's funny is when you're rattling off those teams that are sitting there maybe between, say, 7 and 10, I counted just offhand at least 5 that I would consider, and obviously I'm sort of what most people consider the center of the state in Denver. If you're Fruita Monument, you really, really want that. I mean, the advantage of being able to play those homes is huge. If you're a Pueblo team, the advantage of being able to stay down south, huge. Even some of the northern teams, they may have a few more schools around them, or the ability to, meet halfway in Denver, so to speak. But man, it is a big deal. So, how those seeds come out and how this last week plays out, it's very important. And we talk about it all year. You get a chance to see if the teams that, you're not sure if they've played anybody, or maybe they have out-of-state losses that throw off their index. This is the time when it's mano a mano. You're watching these guys play head-to-head, and like you said, those teams that are maybe what you'd consider a little bit more outer lying in terms of their geography, home court is everything in basketball.
That's right. The one thing I'm going to say, and we're going to keep an eye on all those matchups. I mean, you have some, like I believe the City League tournament takes place this week to wrap up their regular season. The Centennial League tournament takes place this week to wrap up their regular season.
Phenomenal basketball.
Yeah, just so much good hoops going on through the end of the week. But I'm slightly disappointed in the membership at Legislative Council from about 2 weeks ago, because there was a proposal to limit the number of playoff teams for a team sport to 50% of, there it is, the playoff field size proposal that was shot down. The 6A, 5A basketball tournaments are, they each have 40 teams, Doug. And right now, it's a program that we're close to in a lot of ways. But when you look at the Cherry Creek girls, who are sitting at 3-17, they're currently inside the playoff cut. And that's just one of those things that, from someone who observes a lot of high school basketball, high school playoff basketball, it just makes me lose a lot of interest in those first round of games. And that's not I'm not trying to knock Cherry Creek in any way, but I think the spirit of that proposal was to allow for those games to have those initial round of playoff games to have a little bit more of an impact, be a little bit more competitive. And I don't know why we insist on sticking with a playoff field that size.
Well, I can relate back to when I was a senior in high school, and we were one of those teams. I think we were 4 or 5 wins, something like that. And at that time, I believe everybody in the state made it. There was a much bigger bracket and steps into getting into different quadrants and whatnot. But we were promptly dismissed. I'm not so sure that even my own grandmother cared about that game. She knew what was going to happen. So it's tough. You don't want to rule out a Cinderella before there's ever a chance. At the same time, I do think what you were talking about a couple weeks ago on the show in terms of, there's got to be some incentive to be good during the season, after the season, whatever. And if you're not good, I think that reward shouldn't be there. But hey, anything can happen. It's high school. There's nothing bad about high school sports in any way, shape, or form. So the argument of, hey, the more of it you can get for any one kid, the better. I also understand that too. But it does seem like the early rounds when the field is too big is a foregone conclusion.
And for me, we're obviously going to track everything once they get going. But those they call it a play-in round. Those games are just going to be more of let me make sure we see all the finals just so I can make sure the bracket's updated, or I'll chase down a final score if I don't see one. But it's just kind of the playoffs in earnest for at least in my mind won't start until that next round when we get down to, I believe it's 32. And so that should be, as I look at the calendar here, that should be the 27th, 28th. So next weekend as 4A, 3A, 2A, and 1A are all wrapping up their regular season. But that weekend, I will also be busy with hockey semifinals because hockey state tournament brackets were released today. I mentioned earlier, Poudre School District, formerly Fort Collins, is the top 5A seed. And then Battle Mountain is the number 1 seed in 4A. The Huskies won a state title. I want to say it was the COVID year in 21. And that was at the Blue Arena is what it's called now. Back then it was, I think, the Budweiser Event Center. That was a fun, circumstances aside with COVID, that was a really fun state final to be at. It was Battle Mountain and Cheyenne Mountain. So happy to see the Huskies kind of back in that top tier. I think those Western Slope teams make hockey fun when they're good. State tournaments get underway on Thursday. Championships are set for March 2nd at Magnus Arena. Semifinals, of course, will be February 28th at Ed Robson Arena in Colorado Springs. We had our first winter team champions crowned over the weekend. Congratulations to Broomfield and Kent Denver. They captured the girls swimming and diving state championships. Full slate of event champions and full photo galleries from the events can be found over at coloradopreps.com. There's Kent Denver there hoisting the 3A trophy, and then again, Broomfield captured the 4A championship on Friday. Over to letter winners and standouts, Doug. I'm going to go ahead and go first. Talked about swimming, but it was Hadley Carrington from Kent Denver. She helped the 200 medley relay and 400 freestyle relay teams to wins, and then also captured the 50-yard freestyle. That helped power the Sun Devils to the 3A girls swim title, and congratulations to them.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to your ice hockey there for a second. Nolan Darlington of Denver East finished the season as the state leader in points across both classifications. So huge season for him, especially as the Angels head into state. So shout out to Nolan Darlington.
And then with state wrestling beginning on Thursday, I had to look at who had the most wins than anyone in the state. That's Gunnison Zach Benson. He enters the state tournament with a 39-0 record. I'm no good at math, but I think that's pretty good if you have 39 wins on one side of the ledger and 0 losses on the other. he's one of the favorites there in that 3A field. It'll be fun to see if he can battle his way to a state championship. That's going to do it for us today. A lot of stuff to get to, and it is a little bit of a holiday, so we want to make sure we're not taking up everyone's entire day. Stay tuned to the Mile High Sports Network overall. Ryan Blackburn is going to track the Nuggets as they make their push toward the playoffs. We are post All-Star break, so it's really time to get serious about Nuggets basketball. Same thing with the Avalanche. Still in that Olympic break. The Avalanche are just doing the Avalanche players are doing wonderful things in Italy. I think every Avs player that's on an Olympic roster has scored a goal, which is just says a lot about that franchise. Colleen Flynn will have us covered. The Mile High Hockey guys, you can check out that podcast right here on the Mile High Sports Network. And then, of course, the crown jewel, the Denver Broncos. Our Cody Rourke will be watching their offseason moves like a hawk. You can catch him on Good Morning Broncos every day. And, of course, the Orange Crush podcast with him and Rachel Vigil. So, Doug, any intentions of trying to get down to Ball Arena, watch some wrestling, come hang out with the Colorado Preps crew? Or
Hey, absolutely. I mean, I think anybody that can hear Tim Yount talk for 5 minutes, that's all you need. It's a sales pitch that's pretty effective. But in all seriousness, and Tim's incredible in terms of his information on state wrestling. It is the best state tournament, and whether you love the sport, know the sport, or not, you can't beat the energy. And my dad used to always talk about state wrestling, and he was not a wrestler, but he said there's just a certain finality and an emotional apex that takes place in wrestling because team sports are great, but when you win or lose a wrestling state title, it is all you. Everything's on the line. There's no one to pass you the ball, no one to make an assist to. Obviously, lots of people go into making a state champion, but you talk about a sport that it's on your shoulders and you're trying to take that away from someone else and they're trying to take it away from you. There's no better drama in my mind than a state wrestling championship.
And I'll tell you this, of all the events that take place through the course of the year, the emotional shift from the crowd is most prominent at state wrestling.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It adds to the atmosphere because you feel it. When something happens that changes the entire, the entire cadence of that place, you feel that ripple effect.
It depending on where you're sitting in the arena, it almost feels like you missed the memo on the wave because it can be so intense somewhere else. And then sometimes it's your section. So it's just a wild experience just from the sheer aesthetics, the noise, the emotion. I mean, it's tough to beat whether you know or love the sport. It's one that everybody should experience.
Yeah. And one quick story, and then we'll get out of here. I remember years ago, a kid named Theoris Robinson from Pomona. He probably could have been Pomona's first 4-time champion. During semifinals, you could hear over in the 5A match, you could hear the crowd start to come alive a little bit. And I was sitting next to I was working for Chassa Now at the time, and I'm sitting next to Ryan Casey, and Ryan kind of gives me this elbow next to me, and he just looks at me and says, "Theoris is about to lose. You got to get down there, because if a potential 4-timer is going to lose in the semifinals, you have to talk to the kid who beat him."
Yeah, it's wild, and that it's one of those things where the emotions of the winner and the loser are so vastly different that it's almost a tough thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah. So if anyone needs me, I'll be on the floor at Ball Arena starting on Thursday, so I'll be pretty easy to find. But we'll be back next week previewing.
You gonna be wearing that singlet you got? That Colorado Prep singlet that we fitted you for?
No. I think we had to send that one back. I think the measurements were off.
That's
so
probably better for others.
Well, yeah, probably. Special thanks to Tim Yount for gracing us with his presence. Always a big shout out to our guy Jermaine Stafford. Looking forward to getting you back on the program when your schedule is getting yourself freed up. But for Doug Ottewill, Danny Bailey, I'm Dan Mohrmann. We'll check in with you guys next week. This has been the Colorado Prep Show presented by UPSWING.